everybody. This is Tanya from Tango Business Coaching, and welcome to video 4 on the Drama-Free Leadership Series. So in our last video, we talked about not taking things personally, and there was a little framework to set you up on how to set agreements. And that was a little bit of an intro to boundary setting, which is what I'm going to be talking to you about here today. So boundaries have been really a popular topic and definitely a buzzword for the last few years, ever since people had to work from home during the pandemic and had to figure out how to navigate all the things, right, that life threw at you, whether that was your personal life and your work life, and it was all kind of combined inside your house, and you couldn't leave your house, and people were burning out really quickly, right? So lots of discussion about boundary setting, and I never really felt that there was a really great tool to help people, myself included, on how to set a boundary properly and how to hold the line on it, right? So I have now discovered this book. I'm going to highly recommend this book. And I'm recommending it to everybody that I talk to right now. So it is called The Book of Boundaries by Melissa Urban. And she does a really fantastic job of simplifying when you need a boundary, how to set a boundary, how to hold a boundary. Highly encourage this book if you are somebody who struggles with boundaries. So in the leadership space, boundaries are needed more than ever. So boundaries will, this is what she says in the book, right? Boundaries provide the limits of behaviors that are acceptable to you, where the words and actions of others beyond that limit cause you harm or make you feel unsafe. They're the clear rules that allow people to engage with you and allow you to, for you and those other relationships to feel safe and healthy, right? So those are kind of the key phrases around this. It's about safety, it's about feeling healthy and taking care of yourself, right? They are the rules of engagement based on your own comfort level, not about others and how they control you or how you control others. It's not about that. It's about you and your own control of yourself, right? That's what a boundary is actually about. She says in her book that in a healthy boundary practice, you will notice how other people's behavior impacts you. And then you can communicate your healthy limit in relation to that behavior and then consider what you were willing to do in order to enforce that limit. That's what a healthy boundary is, right? So in the workplace, there are so many times, right, where we have warning signs. Think about that, right? Like anxiousness, nervousness, fear, dread, whatever it is for you, the little hairs that sort of jump up on the back of your neck because you have to do something. This is beyond being uncomfortable, right? So this is you're feeling unsafe. You feel like this interaction is going to lead to something that is unhealthy and unsafe. This isn't just uncomfort, right? So I want to be really clear that there's a difference there. And it could be something that you might have to do yourself, or it might be something that even your staff might have to do. So it could be interacting with somebody who might be crossing a line that impacts that feeling of safety for you, or like I said, even one of your staff members. It could be physical, it could be your mental health, whatever it is, right? So you want to pay attention to those signals and understand what the root of that feeling is, right? So if it is related to a behavior or an action of somebody else, then a clear boundary might actually be needed. Usually in the workplace, we just ignore those feelings altogether. And, in an effort to sort of preserve the relationship, all the while, we're just like stewing inside and becoming more and more and more resentful. This is not safe and this is not healthy for us, right? These are the things that lead to mental distress, mental unwellness, and eventually to burnout. So we do not need to be abandoning ourselves or our truth in favor of somebody else's behavior, who, by the way, might not even realize that they're crossing a line, right? So the kind thing to do in our relationships is to set that clear boundary. That provides information for everybody, right? And they will know where those clear guideposts are. And so will you, by the way, right? If you would all follow Brene Brown in her Dare to Lead book, she says, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. It doesn't mean that any of this is easy. It is not easy to set a boundary. And in fact, the first few times that you try this, it's going to probably be very difficult and uncomfortable as you worry about the other party's reaction to the messaging, right? So I want you to remember these two things when you are setting a boundary. One, the boundary you are setting is about you, right? The action that you will take is for you and about keeping you healthy and safe. It's not about controlling them. And secondly, back to our previous video, don't make it personal. Their reaction is about them and their circumstance and whatever's going on with them. It's not about you, right? Okay, so once you know that you need a clear boundary, you set it using simple and clear language. You don't need to over explain why you need the boundary, right? Just a simple statement and a request, because this is about you and your own needs. So over explaining it and trying to maybe temper the language a little bit actually leaves room for interpretation. It leaves room for debate, and we don't want any of that, right? So again, clear is kind here. So communicate the boundary and then hold true to your boundary once it is crossed. Holding true to a boundary is something like reminding the other party about the boundary, restating it if it's necessary, and even escalating the boundary if that's necessary to take action for yourself. So I want to just go through an example. So here's a common example in the workplace. I hear this all the time, all the time, all the time. You are constantly expected to stay tuned in while you're on vacation or even just outside of like your typical work hours, right? This is impacting your ability to focus and be present maybe with your family or take a much needed break, right, from work. And your inability to do that is actually severely impacting your mental health. You are at the brink and you think that your only hope might be to quit this job and get a new job. Does any of this sound familiar? Because I have these conversations on a regular basis. So before you make any rash decisions, I would say try setting a boundary first. Of course, you deserve a break, right? So the first thing you need to consider is who do you need to set this boundary with? Sometimes that's your boss. Sometimes it's your peers. Sometimes it's your staff. Sometimes this particular boundary could even be with yourself. So check in on that one, right? The boundary could look something like this when you set it. So when I am on vacation or when I am outside of my regular work hours, I will, and then fill in the blank with what you will do. So it could be something like, I will not be checking my email. I will not be taking phone calls. Okay, so that's a very hard line, strict boundary. Maybe it's, I will check my emails once at whatever time during the day. So it could be that. So think about what that boundary could be. It could be an easier entry boundary, or it could be a really tight boundary depending on your circumstance and where you're at, right? So once you communicate that to whoever it is you need to communicate it with, which by the way could be yourself, right? If somebody crosses the line, then you remind them of the boundary, right? I'm on vacation right now. I'm spending quality time with my family. I will reply to your request when I am back in the office. Or if it's once a day, I will reply once a day. If the matter is urgent, you can speak to my delegate who will be happy to help you out during my absence, and make sure you have a delegate in place, right? So however you decide to say the language, the point is you were repeating back to them and reminding them what that boundary is. So the beauty of this is that you are standing up for yourself. You're also modeling behavior for your team and for others. Again, it's not always going to be easy, but it's also not easy working in an environment that feels uncomfortable, that is stressing you out and causing you to be anxious. So you have to decide what is What is more hard? Is it more hard to have an uncomfortable conversation with your boss and work through the boundary? Or is it more uncomfortable to become more and more resentful over time, where that leads to eventual burnout? Your health and well being is important, and you need to take care of yourself. Now, I will make a note in here that I know some people say, well, my boss would never allow me to have a boundary like that. Like, I could never, I could never. And my response to that is, have you ever had the conversation with your boss? And usually the answer is no. So making an assumption about what may or may not be true about your boss, is a lack of information, really, right? So it doesn't hurt to have the conversation. It won't be easy, but it does not hurt to have the conversation with your boss. And if your boss says to you, absolutely not, you are expected to be tuned in 24/7, now you have real information, and then you need to make a different decision about that work environment. So I will leave that one with you. If you need help setting boundaries, shoot me a message. Happy to have a discussion with you at any time. Otherwise, good luck. I know this was a bit of a longer video, but this one is really important. So good luck with this one, and I will see you in the next video. Happy leading, everybody. Have a great day.